it just reeks of nastiness. It's not a situation that is ideal for either side, because I don't think that the Bengals want to pay Trey Hendrickson the type of money Trey Hendrickson wants. And obviously Trey Hendrickson doesn't want to play for what the Bengals are willing to give him. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. Let me pull up the teams that are interested in Trey Hendrickson. I should have done that. This is bad radio. I am very sorry about that, because I want to make sure that I get these teams right. So they're talking about this on Pro Football Talk. Bengals listening to trade offers for Trey Hendrickson. This is by Josh Alper. There's no sign of progress on a new contract for edge rusher Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, and that could lead to a change of address before the start of the regular season. NFL media reports that the Bengals are listening to trade offers for Hendrickson from other clubs. The Bengals gave Hendrickson permission to seek out a trade this offseason, but no deal came together. Hendrickson skipped the team's offseason program in the first few days of training camp before reporting. He has not practiced since rejoining the team and has said multiple times this offseason that he will not play out the year under the terms of his current contract. Hendrickson is set to make $16 million under that pact, but is looking for a raise after recording 35 sacks over the last 2 seasons. Any team trading for him would need to take care of that desire while also satisfying the Bengals' demands for compensation, so it's far from a sure thing that there will be any more luck putting a swap together at this point in the calendar. It's an unfortunate situation. The situation between the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, it's unfortunate because I understand both sides of this situation. If you're the Bengals, obviously you appreciate what Trey Hendrickson has done for your organization. He's obviously an extremely productive player, but you also have to ask yourself, this is a guy that's over the age of 30, and you have to ask yourself, how many years does he have playing at a high level? And is that worth giving this guy a contract for $35+ million? But I also see it from Trey Hendrickson's perspective, because 35 sacks over the last 2 years, that's extremely impressive. And you should absolutely want to get paid if you're Trey Hendrickson. But again, what the article in Pro Football Talk said was that not only are teams going to have to fulfill the demands of the Cincinnati Bengals from trade compensation, they're going to have to fulfill Trey Hendrickson's demands for a new contract. So it's unfortunate to say, but Trey Hendrickson, he may be out of luck on this one. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but he may be out of luck, because I don't think a team's going to want to trade. I mean, what are you going to give up to go get Trey Hendrickson? Would the Bengals take a second-round pick? I don't think they would. Maybe they would, but not only would a team have to trade a second-round pick, they would also have to give Trey Hendrickson the contract that he's looking for, which, by the way, I have no idea the type of contract that he's looking for. It might be a situation where Trey Hendrickson's like, look, I get it. I'm over the age of 30. I understand where I'm at. Give me a little over $30 million. And maybe the Bengals are being cheap. But again, I don't know anything about this negotiation. It's just, assumptions and, hey, maybe this is happening. And I don't know what's going on there. Right. But again, I'm going to continue to talk about this, because I don't think people hold themselves to the standard that they hold themselves to, because we talk about team building all the time. We talk about the cliches with team building. And then when a team actually does the things that people tell them to do, they get screamed at and yelled at and said, you're a bad organization and all this other stuff. Right? The Bengals are not trying to pay somebody over the age of 30. That's something that people say all the time with team building, right? You want to make sure that you're not paying guys if they're potentially going to be in the decline of their career, which, 35 sacks over the last 2 years. It's hard to say that could potentially happen, but it's football. He's over the age of 30. It just happens like that. But again, another cliche that people talk about team building, you want to trade somebody a year early rather than a year late. So if the Bengals trade Trey Hendrickson and it ends up that, hey, they were probably right for doing this, would we look at the Bengals any differently? The thing is, though, the reason why the Trey Hendrickson situation is nasty is because it's the Bengals. And the Bengals have a history of not paying guys, right? The Bengals have a history of being a cheap organization. Now, if this was, let's just say, for example, the Eagles that held out on paying a guy, you might have to look at that situation and be like, you want to know what? There's probably something there on the player side. But this is the Bengals, and they don't get the benefit of the doubt. It's very much like the Cowboys in that perspective, where the Cowboys don't get the benefit of the doubt because the things that are happening right now with their players during their negotiating periods, it's been happening for years now at this point, right? So that's where I look at this and I just say, it just reeks of nastiness. It's not a situation that is ideal for either side, because I don't think that the Bengals want to pay Trey Hendrickson the type of money Trey Hendrickson wants. And obviously Trey Hendrickson doesn't want to play for what the Bengals are willing to give him. And that's just, to me, it's unfortunate. And you have to ask yourself when it comes to the Bengals, right? Okay, you trade Trey Hendrickson. That's not a win now move. Like, you significantly hurt your chances to win football games right now. And you're taking the best defensive player off one of the worst defenses in the league. But it's not just, hey, Trey Hendrickson is the best player on a bad defense. That's not the case. Trey Hendrickson would be one of the best players on a defense, regardless of what the defense is or who the defense, whatever team it is. Like, it's not one of those situations where he's the best player on a bad defense. Like, he is legitimately a really good player. He's legitimately one of the best defensive ends in football, probably like right outside of the top 5. But it's just such an interesting situation because it's the same thing with the Terry McLaurin stuff. I actually do take the team's side on this one. I know it's crazy to say, but again, we can't have these cliches of team building. And then when a team actually takes that into practice, we can't then criticize them for doing the very thing that you want them to do, which is trade a player a year before. It's earlier to trade a player early than it is a year early than it is a year late. Because right now, Trey Hendrickson, he's not going to have the same value right now that he's going to have a year from now, right? And I mean that in, like, he's way more valuable now than he's going to be in a year from now. And I think the Bengals are looking at that and they're like, hey, we want Trey Hendrickson a part of this team, but at the same time, we don't want to overpay this guy. And if we, don't get him to agree to the contract that we think is beneficial for the team, well, then we're just going to trade him and we're going to get a second round pick or maybe a first round pick. And with the money that you would have paid Trey Hendrickson, you're going to be able to do a lot more, which is why I kind of come to the conclusion that I think the Bengals should trade him because, again, if he's asking for $35 million a year plus, well, think about how many players you could add to your defense, right? Like, the Bengals are a bad defense. They need as much talent as they could possibly get on that defense. And when you pay a defensive end the type of money they're going to pay Trey Hendrickson, they put themselves in a rough situation there because now they don't have as much money to sprinkle around to the rest of the defense. It's, hey, we're going to pay this edge rusher a ton of money, and that's how we're just going to have to do it. But the Bengals, they do have some young players that they're looking at as, hey, maybe this guy can take a step next year. And that is obviously, Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart. They're expecting a lot out of these guys because they are going to have to be the Trey Hendrickson replacements if Trey Hendrickson decides that he's going to move on. And the Bengals decide that he's going to move on, which I think ultimately the way this relationship is heading towards, like where it's heading towards what I think is going to be a nasty ending. And, here's the thing. I think the situation is going to end up in a nasty ending. And that is Trey Hendrickson is going to end up taking a contract that is not to the value of what he thinks that he's worth. Because I think that there's going to be teams around the league that are going to inform Trey Hendrickson, this is what we're going to pay you. This is the max. And you have to ask yourself, if you're the Bengals, if somebody's offering Trey Hendrickson $33 million, which I think, to me, like what I would pay Trey Hendrickson, it'd be around that $33 million. Because it's like, hey, we get it. You want to get paid with Myles Garrett and all these other guys, but like And to be fair, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, they are above the age of 30, right? But I think it's a little different when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, because while he is an awesome player, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are legends in their organizations, right? Like, Myles Garrett's a future Hall of Famer. Like, TJ Watt, future Hall of Famer. I don't look at Trey Hendrickson the same way that I look at TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. And I just, that's where I come from. And I say, I'd probably give him around that $33 million price tag. And I think ultimately when he does sign his contract extension, whether that be with the Bengals or another team, that's the number that they're probably going to come to.